In this lesson, we're going to deal with the Hebrew verbal system, specifically the elements that we know as the imperative, the participle, and the infinitive. We've already spent a good bit of time looking at some of the Qal perfect forms and the imperfect forms, and now we want to spend some time with the imperatives. Notice very quickly that when we talk about the imperative form, we're talking about the second person. There are some languages that have imperative forms for the other persons, but in Hebrew, that is not the case. We only have a second person imperative, but we do have 4 different forms of those imperatives. We have a second masculine singular, a feminine singular, a masculine plural, and a feminine plural. And each of those, of course, has their own unique form. I think perhaps the easiest way, though, to get a sense of it is to think about this in terms of a command. And the command is based upon an urgency about something that either has just happened, maybe it's about to happen. And the individual who is observing that is going, uh-oh. It's as though there's an immediate need for some type of response. And this uh-oh is exactly what I want you to think about in terms of the vowels that we're going to use for the imperatives. Notice that's what we have. We have the sound and the o sound. So if you think imperative, you think command, you think urgency, you think uh-oh, then you'll have the vowels or the vocalization that is necessary. And from this first form, the uh-oh, the shamor, you'll be able then to vocalize the remaining parts of the imperatives. Now, since this is a verb form, you may already recognize this e sound that goes with the second feminine singular. We have already seen that in the imperfect form of the Qal. You'll notice also the oo sound. We've seen that in the imperfect form. And look, you'll also notice the na sound. Again, these are somewhat familiar to you because you've already observed them in the imperfect forms. But we'll take this first one, the uh-oh, that's the shava with the o sound, and then we'll begin putting that into the form. And as you move that down through the different forms with the e, the oo, and the na, that's going to potentially change this first vowel because you won't have 2 shavas in place with each other unless they're used as a syllable divider. You have a consonant, a vowel, and then another consonant, and you have a syllable divider in this form here. But you will not have, on the beginning of a word, 2 shavas together like this. What will happen typically is this shava is going to reduce and it's going to become a hirik. And that's why with the addition of the e syllable on the end, this shava reduces and it becomes shimri. So we have shamor, shimri, shimru, and then shamor na, the more likely retention of that form here with the addition of this last syllable. This is going to be translated as a command. So if we use the word keep or he keeps, she keeps, whatever, we're just going to simply say keep. And with us, we might, for instance, emphasize that with the exclamation point. So that's the imperative. Again, a little bit more of a simpler presentation, but it'll get you started in terms of orientation to it. Second major part of our lesson today relates to the Qal participle. And we have 2 types of the Qal participle. We have an active and we have a passive. And with each of those, in fact, we do have a masculine singular, a masculine plural, we have a feminine singular, and we have a feminine plural. So we will see that these are built a little bit more like the noun forms, and there perhaps is a reason for that. The first and most basic form, though, is going to be the O-A sound. Shomer, shomer. You'll just need to get that in your mind. Just learn it, because that's what you're going to have to recognize with all of the other forms. I mentioned that these are somewhat like noun forms. Notice that these endings are going to represent what we've already seen as the nominal plural ending here for masculine and here for feminine. This is a little bit of a different form, but this tav on the end and the use of the double segols, the segolet form here, gives us once again a sense that this is in fact feminine. So just to reiterate what we're talking about, shomer And here we have the show sound still in place, but show marim with the masculine plural ending, the show sound here with the meret, and the show sound with the ot, which is our feminine plural sound. One very important thing about this that relates to both active and passive is that at times the use of this is going to look more like a nominal use or a nominal form, or what we might say somewhat like a noun form. That's going to be represented by, if we think of it as keeping, let's just indicate the way that we typically will do this. When we think of it as a noun, it's going to be the one keeping. You'll find examples of this fairly regularly in the text, and when it is the one keeping, it's almost like it's the keeper, which really sounds more nominal than it does verb form. At times you will actually even see the definite article on the front of the word indicating that in fact it is the one keeping or the keeper. Just an important side note, and you'll see representations of that in your textbook, whether it's the book that we're using currently or the grammar that I am preparing. That's our active, but notice we do have a passive form. The primary feature that I want you to recognize in each of these forms is the use of the shurik, the oo sound in the middle of the form. The oo is what we're looking for here. You have the shamur, shamurim, shamura. Here's the feminine. You recognize that. Notice the ot on this one as well, indicating the feminine. But once again, shamu wrote. Shamu wrote. This shurik in the middle of the word is going to indicate to us the passive. And it's going to be translated as being kept, or is kept, or is keeping, depending upon whether it's past, present, or future. But the primary rule here is that the oo sound indicates the passive. This can also be important in terms of recognizing the nominal use of this in some instances. The last is going to be the Qal infinitive, and this is going to be actually somewhat easier, especially in the construct form, because we have two states. One is construct and the other is absolute. The interesting and helpful thing is that the construct state is always going to have the infinitive attached to it. Thus, what we will see in this case might be something like lishmur. The construct state, remember from our nominal understanding, puts a word in a position to be connected to another word. And that's exactly what we find here, lishmur, where you have the preposition. However, the absolute is going to be a little bit different, and this is going to be a-o. That's the sound that we're looking for, the a-o. And this is going to be used to give us two indications, depending upon where the infinitive absolute is found in relationship with the verb. So for instance, if the infinitive absolute is found in advance of the verb, this is almost like it's getting us ready. It's going to be for emphasis, and that's the best way to think about it. It's getting us ready. It's going to emphasize something. If, however, the infinitive absolute is found after, that's going to be continuation, as though it is pulling us along. It's not letting us stop. It wants us to continue forward with that. So that would be the infinitive absolute. Emphasis if it's in the beginning, and continuation if it's in the end. Well, I think this will give you a little bit of an overview that'll provide for you some sense that correlates, some sense of the usages of this word, these forms that correlate to what you see in your textbooks or to the grammar that I am preparing that will eventually be a companion to this course. Hope that helps, and we will see you again on the next video. Thanks.